Population Biology and Human Populations, Part 6, examines the stress placed on all of the Earth's systems by continued human population growth. In other words, we will try to explain the nature and implications of growth in human populations. As well, this movie examines the difficulties in applying the concept of carrying capacity to local human populations. The significant ideas are a variety of models and indicators are employed to quantify population dynamics. Human population growth rates are impacted by a complex range of changing factors. And lastly, human carrying capacity is difficult to quantify. Here is an outline of all the available movies for population biology and human populations. Use this outline to find the movie you need for review. This movie is focused here. In this graph of human population growth, the time scale on the x-axis is expanded over a wide range of time, a scale that emphasizes the dramatic nature of our recent exponential growth. Humans, unlike other species in nature, have been able to increase their food supply using fertilizers and irrigation techniques and hybrid seeds. Humans have eliminated many competitor species to increase the amount of land under cultivation to provide more food for people. Humans have increased water availability by drilling for groundwater, and humans have reduced the effects of disease through vaccines and cures such as penicillin. Throughout human history, our technological revolutions have increased carrying capacity once, twice, 3 times. Let me say this once more. Humans have been able to alter local carrying capacity over time. Tools that increased the effectiveness of hunting or fishing, increased food supply, and brought us to a new carrying capacity. Domesticating plants and animals in early agriculture increased food supply and took us to a new carrying capacity. And the availability of fossil fuels kick-started the Industrial Revolution that increased food supply. In parallel with the increased food production, humans have increased the area under cultivation by outcompeting wild species and reducing the effects of other density-dependent limiting factors by harvesting groundwater, reducing disease, and improving sanitation. In 2050, the human population should start growing, leveling at around 9 billion, maybe 9.5 billion people. Now, is this the carrying capacity of the Earth? Is 9 billion the number of people the Earth can support sustainably over time? Maybe, but what is sustainability again? Sustainability is the use of resources at a rate that allows natural regeneration and, as important, minimizes damage to the environment. Are we replacing forests at the rate we cut them down? Is groundwater being recharged at a rate equal to what humans withdraw? Are we using soil resources in such a way that we can continue to grow the food required for a growing population over an extended period of time? And are we minimizing the damage to the environment as we move forward? Sustainability is a condition where not only must harvest rates be less than replacement rates, but rates of waste cannot exceed the Earth's ability to assimilate those wastes. So here's my question. Have we yet to reach carrying capacity because food supplies appear to have kept pace? Or have we already exceeded carrying capacity because of the damage people have done to the environment in the form of pollution? Sure, at present we are growing enough food for 7.3, 7.5 billion people. And we have forest resources for 7.3, 7.5 billion people. But is our harvest of resource sustainable given a waste stream that is not being assimilated? I have been all around these first 2 IB syllabus statements through this unit on population. What are the implications of growth, continued growth, in human populations? Can you address potential limiting factors for growing human populations? Has the Earth's human population not yet reached carrying capacity, or have we already exceeded carrying capacity? And here's an implication in this third statement. If human populations do not live sustainably, they will exceed carrying capacity and risk collapse. As you think about carrying capacity of the earth for the human species, remember that people are not uniformly distributed across the earth, as you can see in this diagram. As well, some biomes can support more people than other biomes. One implication of exponential growth in human populations is that we might exceed carrying capacity. Maybe we have in fact already exceeded carrying capacity. It's only a matter of time that some limiting factor, some environmental resistance, causes a population crash. Certainly there are examples of this in local populations experiencing water shortages or famines. If human populations do not live sustainably, they will exceed carrying capacity and risk collapse. As the population increases, or as the per capita consumption of resources increases, or both, carrying capacity is approached, as you can see here. But it is possible that during this growth phase, humans degrade the environment, over-harvest the stock, pollute the air or water, thus exceed carrying capacity. This is unsustainable, and the population risks collapse. If the environment is degraded, then the carrying capacity could decrease and be lower than the original carrying capacity. So here are some of the factors that might limit human population growth, the factors that, in essence, are the implications of exponential growth. Food supply depends on the quantity of available food as well as the price of food. If there's a shortage, the price goes up, and some people may not be able to afford what they need. Water supply, surface water is renewable, but deep groundwater supply is not. It takes time to replenish the groundwater stock, so careful use is required. Soil. Topsoil for growing plants is not renewable, and once degraded, it does not come back in a short period of time. Erosion is one type of soil degradation. Waste buildup. What am I talking about? Climate change? Will a changing climate affect our ability to grow crops? You bet. And how about disease? Bird flu, for example. We've already seen the outbreak of disease due to high densities of people in contact with domesticated animals such as pigs and chickens. While human populations can grow exponentially, food supply does not. Food supply grows linearly, if it grows at all. In other words, the size of the human population might exceed the world's ability to produce food. That population numbers would outstrip food supply was a Malthusian idea. Are we looking at the effect of a density-dependent limiting factor in this image of people seeking water from a well? Are we looking at potential density-dependent limiting factors in this image of many people seeking resources in a desert? Remember, the carrying capacity of one biome is not the same as the carrying capacity of another biome. Are the people in these images suffering from a lack of resources? Do we have too many people on the earth? Or are there just too many people in these locations? Is there too little food, too little water? How about political problems with distribution? Conflict may be impacting the availability of food for these people. Is desertification, a type of degradation of the soil that you can see in this image, the result of too many people overusing the land? Is desertification a density-dependent effect? Erosion on this farm field and polluted waterways, as you can see in this image in the lower right, are likely density-dependent effects. Is air pollution a density-dependent effect? While we've been able to feed the growing human population by producing more food with every year, have we released more waste into the environment than the environment can assimilate? Have we exceeded carrying capacity by virtue of our degradation of the environment? Systems left intact, systems left alone, systems without pressure from humans, like the image on the left, provide life-supporting services, services taken advantage of by people, slowing the erosion of soil, controlling floods, replenishment of groundwater, climate regulation, and pollination services. But as the human population grows, increased stress is placed on all of the Earth's systems, and we lose life-supporting ecosystem services when we place stress on systems. Intact systems, like the system on the left, have value: aesthetic, cultural, environmental, ethical, spiritual, intrinsic, and economic. But there are ecological values as well. The intact ecosystem provides services: climate regulation, slowing soil erosion, flood control, replenishment of groundwater, and pollination. The system on the right cannot provide those ecological services because of degradation. Intact ecosystems, like the mangrove forest on the left, provide life-supporting services, slowing soil erosion, renewing water supplies, and spawning grounds for fish. As well, consider the value of the intact ecosystem: the economic, environmental, intrinsic, aesthetic, spiritual, and ethical values. But as the human population grows, increased stress is placed on all of the Earth's systems, and we lose life-supporting ecosystem services when we place stress on the mangrove forest, as can be seen here in the image on the right. Consider what intact ecosystems can provide societies. Compare what the society in the left watershed receives from the ecosystem relative to the society that lives in the right watershed. Let's transition to our last IB syllabus statement. Now, many students ask, what is the carrying capacity of humans on Earth? And the scary answer is that we don't know. But in the disappointment of not knowing, the underlying discussion of why we're uncertain about the Earth's carrying capacity for humans is quite interesting. Here's the statement. Explain the difficulties in applying the concept of carrying capacity to local human populations. In the discussion of our uncertainty of local carrying capacity, we must include the following factors: the range of resources used, the ability to substitute one resource for another, variations in the lifestyles of humans, the importation of resources from one location to another, technological developments. From location to location, there is a wide range of available resources: wood, concrete, straw, leaves, plastic, steel. Depending on resource availability, local carrying capacity will vary. There is a wide range of available food resources. Depending on what's available, how it's grown or harvested, carrying capacity will vary. The second factor that contributes to the uncertainty in knowing carrying capacity in local populations is that humans have ingenuity. Humans substitute one material for another, and this influences local carrying capacity. Humans have substituted aluminum screw-on caps for cork stoppers. In providing fabric, humans have substituted cotton for silk, nylon for cotton, and Gore-Tex for nylon. The third factor that contributes to the uncertainty in knowing carrying capacity in local human populations is that the lifestyle of humans varies, and the choices people make influences local carrying capacity. Depending on how much each person in a society consumes, carrying capacity can go up or down. If we each consume huge quantities of resources per person, carrying capacity would go down. But if each of us were to choose to consume less, carrying capacity could theoretically go up, as there would be more resources to increase population size, increase the carrying capacity. People can choose to eat higher or lower on the food chain. In other words, to be a meat eater or a vegetarian. People can choose to eat more or less processed food, and these choices affect local carrying capacity. As a note, meat-eating cultures are high consumers because of the 10% rule that you learned when we studied ecology. Only 10% of everything a consumer eats remains as net secondary production. Thus, for every 100 kilograms of grain fed to a cow, only 10 kilograms of cow remain after respiration and other losses. By eating meat, we are wasting grain that could be fed to others, thus increasing K. People make decisions about whether or not to recycle, or to carpool, or to turn off the lights when they leave a room. These decisions impact local carrying capacity. Reusing, and recycling are important for resource conservation. By not wasting resources, there are theoretically more resources to go around. By these activities, carrying capacity would be increased. The fourth factor that contributes to the uncertainty in knowing the carrying capacity in local human populations is that local populations can trade for resources. This would allow a local population living in a region with a naturally small carrying capacity to increase carrying capacity by importing resources from a distant location. Think Dubai or Las Vegas, big cities in the desert. These houses here are located in a tundra biome. The wood to make these houses had to have been imported. The fifth factor that contributes to the uncertainty in knowing carrying capacity in local human populations is technological development. Now, I want you to be very clear and very precise when we use this word technology. For example, humans have been able to produce more food per square meter due to technology, irrigation, hybrid seeds, fertilizers. This allows for an increase in local carrying capacity. Tools have allowed humans to better hunt and gather food, domesticating crops and animals, increase carrying capacity here, and the Industrial Revolution with fossil fuel-driven farming techniques, including fertilizers and irrigation, has stimulated the exponential growth over the last 100 years or more. What new technologies might arrive in the future that would allow humans to increase the kilograms of food harvested per square meter of land? Gene technology? Fertilizers, irrigation, using groundwater particularly, and hybrid seeds were the driving forces in the Green Revolution. Truthfully, cheap fossil fuel was also very important. These technologies increased food supply, thus allowing for the exponential growth in humans. These technologies increased the Earth's carrying capacity. Can we do it again? In providing light, technological developments have brought us whale oil, then coal, then nuclear power. Here's a summary of ideas that swirl around the difficulties in applying the concept of carrying capacity to local human populations. You can pause the movie now, spend some time studying this list, but I won't review it specifically any more than to say that. And that brings us to the end of Population Biology and Human Populations, Part 6.